The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
This studio is set up perfectly for social distancing, you know? I think I'm trying to figure out if you had to rank who is the most under the weather today. I think it'd be a tie for first between Elliott tonight. You made some sounds coming
I
in.
got a little congestion I'm dealing with, but other than that, I'm all right. I'm above board here. I think the other two of you guys are fighting a good fight, though.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. My voice and my throat, every morning I get, and again, I don't mean to be too graphic on the show, but every morning I wake up and it's about a half-hour process to clear and drain all the mucus from my body.
What do we got on a color palette there, the stuff coming out?
It's a mix between lime green and yellow that I've never seen before.
We like a little fluorescence in our mucus here.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on.
Non-graphic at all, I like
Little,
it.
early morning mucus talk for the radio listeners.
Morning mucus talk. By the way, I had to wear the Kansas Jayhawk merch here today, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to reverse jinx all of my teams into wins. That's what I'm going to do. Anytime the Bengals play, I'm wearing the other team's jersey. Anytime the Reds play, wearing the other team's jersey. Bearcats, other team's jersey. I'm going to reverse jinx everybody in this city because right now nobody's winning.
How many jerseys do you have to buy for the other 29 MLB teams?
Yeah, I've thought about that. It's about, we're talking about $100 a jersey if we go legit. I'm going to have to go
probably $1,000+ in jerseys.
Probably overseas. We'll have to see. But I at this point, I think it's worth it for my mental well-being. Because if none of my teams ever win, Justin, I'm going to get very upset.
Well, maybe we will accrue enough super chats today.
Get you a jersey.
To help the funding for those jerseys to help reverse the bad luck that the Cincinnati teams have had as of late. But yes, interesting hoodie choice. It's never stood out to me that you've worn that until basketball season's here and you're so high on the Bearcats and now you're wearing an opposing team's hoodie.
I don't want to do it. I have to do it. And it's just because I don't know if I'll ever see another win again. And that's where we are. That's how down bad I am right now at this very second. Casey's FC Cincinnati can't even root for them anymore. Acosta's going to leave.
But he came in confident today.
He updated me this morning that he thinks his guy's sticking around.
Really?
Well, he hasn't left yet. That's a good sign.
That means he's still here.
Yeah.
Can't argue that.
I would say that if you look at his contract, he's here until 2026. So the team can do with him as they please until 2026.
Listen, I want it to happen. I want him to stay. I want somebody in this city to win something. That's all I want. I've stopped begging. I'm begging for my teams. I'm letting anybody win. Whoever's got a team in this city, I'm gonna cheer for you to win. NKU, it starts with you.
Northern Kentucky. There you go.
Right State. How are they doing?
They're 8-8. They play tonight.
8-8.
They play tonight. Okay. They play Oakland, the team that made that run in the tournament last year. But none of those guys remaining. So.
Golke.
Yep. Again, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Welcome in. Happy Thursday. Is it Thursday? I don't even know what day it is, to be honest. I'm sick of the cold already. The only positive to when the temps get this low is that when we get that regular 30-degree hit, it feels like spring outside. So I'm looking forward to when the temps return to normal winter temps instead of these frigid, below zero temps or whatever it is outside. Casey, you found the last parking spot. We were all debating what is Casey going to do, but you found the last parking spot. Is that good or bad luck? How do you classify that? Because you said you had a little slow start to the morning. Yep. Feels like you're rushed, but you got the last parking spot. That's a good thing, right? Like your luck has turned. Yeah, everything's going grand right now.
Yeah, I would say that it was lucky that I got the last spot. The early bird gets the worm, right? So all those folks that got up early enough to get the good parking spots, kudos to you. I had to step in snow. I was not expecting to have to step in snow. I'm wearing ankle socks, so I got snow all over inside my shoe because, the snow is a foot tall. So, depending on how you look at it, it was lucky, but also unlucky. And that's just how things go here in Cincinnati and all things sports. We get a little lucky, and then we get a lot of bad luck. So hopefully that turns around today.
Well, we got a lot.
I don't get any good luck. Never won a scratch off.
You've never won a scratch
No,
off?
I have. That was a bit. That was a
I was
bit.
gonna say that's
most?
hard to do.
What is
No,
the
I-
most you've won on a scratch off?
$20.
So
That's pretty good.
I feel
That's
like
not fair. It was a $20 scratch off.
Well, so you won $0.
I won $0.
Okay.
So my wife's Christmas this year, my wife's family Christmas this year, bunch of kids running around everywhere. We all got some scratch offs, and I didn't scratch mine off, but the kids were screaming, and one girl started crying because she didn't get a scratch off. So I said, "Fine, take mine. Just stop crying and go." Like, kids drive me nuts. Then the mom starts screaming across the room because the girl won like $50 on the scratch off.
Oh, no.
Now I'm pissed. Now I'm like, do I do it?
No.
Do I do it? Do I say, "Hey, I'll trade you. I'll trade you one," But I let the girl keep the $50.
That's nice of
I
you.
felt it's the least I can do.
I'm glad you didn't take away that.
But I was
little
really
girl's
put in this
$50 that
weird
you gave
spot
her.
where I'm like, am I really going to go up to her and say, "Hey, can I have that back?" Like, it is what it is. But no, I don't know what she spent it on. I hope it went towards, a great Christmas gift, whatever. But I did not ask for my $50.
That's my biggest fear is like not. So if I see a bet, I ride it because if it wins and I don't ride it after I see it, it's my fault. If I gave away a scratch off and it won $100, I'd be so mad. I'd have to go to a gas station to buy 5,000 scratch offs until I get a $100 winner.
That's why I don't like when my buddies text me what wagers they put on that night, because I'm like, man, what if they do win though? Oh, I like his reasoning for that. But I'm like, I'm going to pass. Then I start to see it trending towards hitting, and I'm like, man, if that's the exact amount of money I would have put on it. But again, not lucky. I haven't, no luck as far as that goes. I haven't won a bet in a while. Like when sports betting initially hit, like I was on a roll, and I'm like, they're just doing this. But I'm like, you can't just do it. They can't just make things happen for you. I haven't won a sports bet in quite some time. I don't even know the last one I've placed because I'm so down.
That's your problem. That's why you haven't won.
I can't strike out.
Right.
You gotta pay to play.
You can't shoot just one single bullet. You got to go shotgun.
I'm only taking the
spray that
layups.
sucker. Put 15 bets out. Then you can say you're a winner if you win 2 of them.
Wide open for 3, dish it off. But
That's
if I'm
right.
under the bucket for the layup, give me it.
That's right.
I'm a great post player. 5'5", 5'7".
5'5" post player.
Is what it is.
Nate
All right.
Robinson.
That's fair.
The Admiral. There you go. That's David Robinson, yes. Justin Kidder, Elliott Rearing, Jacob
NBA
Tissot with
guy.
you here. Casey McAllister in the producer chair. Very wonky start. It feels like a Friday, to be
Does.
honest.
It does feel like a little bit of a Friday.
We're all
does.
under the weather. Not a whole lot of cares right now, but we're going to fight through.
We got this.
We do have Elliott's headlines coming up. We're going to do a little buy or sell coming up around the corner. We will hear Gavin Lux, who kind of did a little media tour and weighed in on his thoughts on being traded to the Cincinnati Reds. And then some interesting comments from Matt McLain on how he viewed the trade for Gavin Lux and what it means for his role with the Reds this upcoming season. So we have that coming up around the corner. We'll talk some NFL. We'll talk some college football playoffs. That kicks off tonight. Notre Dame, Penn State. We had Mike Golick Jr. on the show yesterday. Appreciate him giving us some time this week and some interesting talking points out of that conversation that we'll get to around the corner. But before we blab on anymore, let's send it to our guy Elliott for Elliott's headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliott has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliott's headlines.
What could have been.
You almost had it.
I almost did.
I thought today was the day.
I almost did. When
Continue-
do you think?
Never.
Never?
Never.
I think at some point I'll remember.
I truly don't think. If it hasn't happened yet, it won't happen.
Okay, that's fair.
College basketball last night. Good night of college basketball. 10th ranked Texas A&M. They went on the road by 2. Game-winning shot. 19 seconds left against 17th ranked Oklahoma. There you go, SEC. 11th ranked Kansas. They destroy Arizona State 74-55. 13th ranked Illinois. They beat Penn State by 40. Alabama, 5th ranked team in the country. They traveled to South Carolina to take care of SC by 20 points there.
Mark Sears went off.
Alabama looks pretty good.
Hasn't been playing very well so far this year. Preseason SEC Player of the Year, but 20-piece last night. Played full 30 minutes. Starting to get back in the groove a little bit. I think Alabama could be scary if they make some shots.
Continuing on, battle of the winning streaks in the NBA, as we talked about a little bit yesterday. The Cavaliers, they win 129-122 over the Thunder to end the 15-game winning streak by OKC. Cavs have lost 1 game since when? How about December 1st? December 1st, they have lost a total since December 1st, they've lost a total of 1 basketball game. The Pistons, they get another dub last night, 113-98 over the Nets. Are they the Brooklyn Nets? They're the Brooklyn Nets,
They are,
though, right?
They are.
I think they are.
Why do you have me thinking they're the New Jersey Nets?
I
though?
know.
But they're not.
They're the Brooklyn
They're the
Nets,
Brooklyn
though.
Nets. They've been the Brooklyn Nets for quite some time.
Quite some time. And
a long, long time.
I feel like the Nets are one of the more forgettable franchises.
We are
in
10
sports.
minutes into the show. We have killed the NBA today.
We have.
Nate
Yeah.
Robinson is not the Admiral, so that was off to a bad start. We don't even know if it's the Brooklyn
It
Nets
is-
or
no,
the New. It's the Brooklyn Nets.
Confirmed
But
Brooklyn
like-
Nets. This is an NBA show.
The 6-29 Wizards, they've lost 4 in a row, this time to the 76ers. And Giannis last night passed Kareem for most Milwaukee Bucks double-doubles in their 121-105 win. Some notable scores from last night. The NFL is monitoring the LA wildfires, and they have named a contingency site for the Vikings and the Rams. The plan, I believe, would go to Arizona if the fires, are a big issue, which they obviously are, but that could be on the move to a different state.
You would still have. That would still be. Look, the Rams never have true home field advantage to begin with, so it's not like they'd be, And look, considering the circumstances, it's not like you need to feel bad for that.
Yeah.
Like obviously you just want to get that game in, but they do have a contingency plan to be able to move that game to Arizona, as you talked about, and we'll see what impact that has at all. So,
But
there you go.
those are your headlines.
First team All-SEC tight end Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt announced that he won't be going to the draft. He'll be coming back to Vandy next year. Not huge news, as he wasn't a first-round pick, but certainly a top 3 or 4 tight end. Usually those guys go to the draft. And then the other thing I wanted to point out that I thought was kind of interesting, scoring margin versus playoff teams. 4 playoff teams in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
Of the ones that are positive, Denver is +3, Kansas City is +4, Tampa Bay +26, Philadelphia +29, Detroit +36, and then Baltimore in first at +112. They have skull-dragged playoff teams this year.
That's wild.
Skull-dragged playoff teams this year. And you have to wonder if it's going to continue as they go into play Pittsburgh at home this weekend. Those games are usually close between Tomlin and Harbaugh, but if that tells you anything, they've been distantly the most dominant team against good teams in the NFL this season. So we'll see how that goes.
What's he smiling about?
Because we forgot FC headlines.
We didn't.
I got plenty
Elliott.
of FC headlines for you. Media Day is today, and we get to hear from Kevin Denke, their big signing of this free agency period. Around 150, so we're going to have to stay tuned. Maybe we'll post something.
Maybe you'll post something.
Maybe I'll post something. So keep look out for that. Pat Noonan also said he's looking forward to having Luciano Acosta back. Players are to report in the next couple of days, and the team is still looking for possibly a left wing back and maybe another attacking piece. So be on the lookout for that. Also, Matt Miazga and Nick Hagelin are both very notable names and players for the team that were hurt last year, and their recovery is going smoothly, according to Laurel Fackler. So those are your FC headlines.
Here we go. One final headline, courtesy of Sean Connor. I'm really good at knowing ball. On November 12th, I said on the show that my Falcons NFC South future looks pretty, but I kind of want to cash out and take the Bucks at +700. This was on November 12th. The Bucks came back and won that division, but Reed talked me out of it. So I lost my money. But I knew.
Scratch off all over
But I
the
knew.
board. It's the question. So if FC Cincinnati Media Day is today, does that mean the season's starting soon? Has the season ended?
So that's the fun thing about soccer. And if you're a soccer fan, as soon as the season ends, the season begins.
Yeah,
This is
there's
true, Casey.
this is the MLS has the longest season in all of American Major League sports. It's like 10 months long. There's only a 2-month period where there's no soccer being played.
That's
Isn't that
insane.
crazy?
No, I actually wish the NFL was like that. I would really
Yeah,
wish
that would
all
be
our pro
cool.
sports imagine only, okay, the Bengals, it's a bad season, but we'll see you in 2 months. You got to wait a long, long time before you see the Cincinnati Bengals again. So the season starts when?
Well, preseason starts very soon. I know that. The first preseason game that's been announced is January 24th. FC will play CF Montreal in Clearwater. So
Who won the championship?
I do not know.
And that's talking soccer.
That's talking
We've
soccer.
killed Major League Soccer. We've killed the NBA today. My goodness, we are on a roll as far as that goes. But all right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Other note to add to the headlines too. Reports started rumbling yesterday, Bill Belichick, that the Raiders, after moving on from Antonio Pierce, that Bill Belichick is a name to keep an eye out for that Raiders job, obviously with Tom Brady being in on the ownership. Diana Rossini with The Athletic came out and said no, that, Bill Belichick, he's actually out on the recruiting trail right now. He has no interest in the NFL. We might do a little buy or sell now. We're just going to do this one buy or sell. Buy or sell Bill Belichick being on the sideline for North Carolina in week 1 of the college football season this year.
I'm going to buy it, but I will say it is seeming like this was all a ploy to get him back to get himself back in the NFL. I do have a little bit of a sneaking suspicion that people want what they can't have, and Belichick goes to North Carolina, but then he put the clause in there that you actually can have me if you just offer me a good little deal. So I think there's a chance he goes to the NFL. But I do think it's 80%, 85% that he's coaching North Carolina this year. He never coached the Raiders because Tom, being his boss, wouldn't go over well.
I think Tom just wants to hire him to fire him.
I think you're right. Yeah, I'm buying
That would be
too.
hilarious.
I think Bill's going to coach North Carolina for a year. Now, do you think it was his biggest priority to get back into coaching and then back to the NFL? Or do you think it was his biggest priority to get Steve-O a job?
It might have been Steve-O a job, but I don't actually think that's the answer because I think they're fine, and I don't think they really care about that. I don't think Bill really cares about that.
Well, I was saying if Steve wasn't going to get a job any other way,
yeah, but see,
Bill's
that's
trying to help his son out.
Yeah, but that's my thing. I don't
that
know.
tongue and that mullet, I don't know who's hiring you.
I think Bill cares about himself more than he cares about his son right
Fair
now.
enough.
So I'm going to say
Fair enough.
I'm going to say Bill is trying to get himself a job.
Or was it for his girlfriend to go back to, she probably needs to finish her degree.
That's true.
She's only, 20, 21?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Bingo!
I can't.
There we go. Coughing show.
We're
I
all,
gotta cough now?
I don't know what I can do. I'm sorry. I am sorry that I have to cough this entire show. I'm very, very sorry to everybody.
You don't need to apologize. You don't need
But every
of our
time I laugh,
listeners-
for the record, every time I laugh, it gets worse.
You know, many of our listeners are sitting at their job right now, probably a little under the weather. So
I don't know.
No
We'll
need
see.
to apologize unless Jacob's pissed because he's going to get
Yeah.
sick next. But he did come in sounding pretty rough today.
Yeah,
so.
no, I'm still fighting the good
In
fight. I'm on the
Casey,
back end, though.
we all know Casey can get sick. He has unlimited PTO, so he can get sick, right? Like Casey
True.
can get sick.
That is true. It doesn't even matter. Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm the furthest away from you guys, trying to not use all that unlimited PTO that I have.
We'll see you tomorrow,
so-
right?
Yeah, sure. Maybe.
That wasn't his choosing, though, right?
Right.
That wasn't his choosing.
Yeah, he's got to fix that. I mean, all this snow. That roof needs some fixing.
the roof, man. I was taking a look at it this morning. I saw all these icicles hanging from it. I don't know. Might need to go knock some of those puppies down for
Too much weight pulling it
Yeah,
down.
too much
One
weight.
icicle.
Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliott Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. Step away for a few moments. Talk a little Cincinnati Reds. Gavin Lux, the newest Cincinnati Red addition through a trade last week, of course, or was it this week? When did Gavin Lux get added to the Red? I don't even know.
It was this week.
2 days ago?
Yeah.
been a
It was
long
Monday,
week.
right?
It was Monday.
It was
I think so.
Monday.
It's been a weird
It's
week.
been a long week.
So it seems like ages ago, but yes. So Gavin Lux did a media tour recently and weighed in on his thoughts on what it means to him to be a Cincinnati Red, how he sees his role fitting in with the Reds, and the excitement to play for Terry Francona, and then also some interesting comments made by Matt McLain on how he views his role now that trade was pulled off earlier this week. We'll talk about all that and more coming up, more off the bench when we come back. All right, and we are back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister in the producer chair, Elliott Rearing, and Jacob Tissett. I feel like I don't even know the last time I was in studio. I'm sure we can go back and
Yeah.
go look at
If
the-
you ask
if we
nicely,
go
I'm sure
look at
someone in the chat will let you
the
know.
wardrobe tab. I'm sure if it's been updated to this point.
Has he been updating it? Do we know?
This is a new shirt, so this one will have to be added.
Yeah, it will have to be added.
Yeah, this is new.
It would be great if Mouse Cop did an updated version
Every
next
day.
year. No, well, every day. But I would like to see one however long you're here, Kinner. I'd like to see.
However long you're.
I would like to see the updated shirt graphic every single day. If it's for 5 years, I want 5 years of shirts.
Yeah, see, that's why working in radio, I could wear the same 3 or 4 shirts every day. Never mattered. Never mattered. Here, I had to start worrying about. I think I wore that shirt twice last week, and now I'm very self-conscious. Ever since he's done that, I sit here, I'm like, wait, when did I wear this last? Now he won.
Yeah,
he won.
I think about that more than I should.
Yeah.
About whether or not I'm repeating clothes and stuff in the same week, and it's just like it's not that big of a deal, but apparently it is.
Well, it is because I'm
is.
wearing Kansas Jayhawk merch to give the Bearcats a win.
Yeah, that's true. That's
So-
true. Will you wear it again tomorrow?
We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see if I feel good about it.
Okay.
I might. I don't know. We'll have to see.
By the way, I was watching on Netflix the other day, your doppelganger, that show You. Remember we posted that?
Yes.
So
I forgot about that.
There's another season of You coming out. It's the final season. So, but
I like that show. It's
the
creepy,
hat,
but it's good.
The hat made me think of that again. I'm like, every time I see that.
That was a good pull. That was early too. That was really early. I don't remember if that was like right after
I don't even remember this.
Muirfield, I think.
Oh, when I started?
Yeah, pretty quick right after you started. When he said I looked like the antagonist from You,
Really?
the mass.
Or is he the protagonist? I can't really tell.
I'm pretty sure he's
of all him and Dexter, as far as guys who
both
slice
pretty
people
clearly
up.
bad guys.
I think he's a bad guy.
But Dexter is like a psycho. He's like a psycho vigilante.
Yeah.
He kills people.
He kills bad people.
And I think
eats
he
them.
killed good people too.
Did he really?
In the new show, he did.
Oh, when
Spoiler.
they brought it back.
They did run it back. So.
Oh, he
Is
turned
it like
bad.
a young Sheldon type of thing?
Well, they did do a young Dexter. They did do a young Dexter.
So he's like 12 running around killing people?
I think so. I think that's the premise of that.
Wow. What a sports show we got here.
Oh, it's a Friday show. I can't wait to see what we do tomorrow. I'm on a kick now of watching all the Walking Dead spin-offs now.
Okay.
Like with Negan and Maggie.
I never
or
got into
whatever.
Walking Dead.
It's good. It was
I
good.
couldn't get into it when it just like Breaking Bad.
And wasn't
When all my
very good.
friends were into Breaking Bad, I didn't care about it. And then I called off 3 straight days of work because I binge watched the hell out of it. Walking Dead, same thing. Heard everyone talk about Negan, talk about the show. I didn't give a rip about it. Now I'm obsessed with it, and I've binge watched the whole thing.
It's great. It's what we watched it every Sunday at 9:00. Every Sunday, my family did.
The most memorable day going to work was everyone coming in. It was the episode when he bashed everyone's head in with the bat or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the show then, but like everyone came to work and was just talking about it. Now, that was like the most talked about episode I can remember for any show that I had not watched up to that point. Pretty wild. But
People
Negan's
call
my
that the
favorite.
end of the show.
Really? I thought Negan is my favorite.
It did go downhill since then, but yeah, they call that the end of the show.
Casey, what'd you think? Any update on Acosta?
Well, to add to the Walking Dead conversation, that was when I stopped watching it.
Really?
Bashed everyone's head in with the bat. Yeah, I'm done. No updates with Acosta yet.
Let us know. Let us know. I'm eagerly awaiting. I
Do you think by the end of the show we'll have an update?
Well, because the show ends at noon and the press conference is at 1:50, probably not.
And Acosta's not coming on that press conference.
Ooh, why would you not? Well, LeBron would not miss the Lakers press conference. Joe Burrow would not miss, a media day press conference for the Bengals. Why would Acosta not show up?
Well, the person that's coming on is Kevin Denke, their newest big signing.
Denke.
Fair
That's
enough.
going to be a fun name to say if he's really bad.
Oh yeah.
Well, the Reds added a piece earlier this week, Gavin Lux. Infielder. Just an infielder.
Again,
Maybe outfielder. Maybe pitcher when things get bad late in the 8th inning and we burnt through our bullpen for a few games.
if we get down at any point in the 162 by a bunch of runs, we
Sure.
have to pitch Gavin Lux so that there's a chance he can play all 9 positions this season, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the signing.
Are you more excited now than you were when we talked about it 2 days ago?
Yeah, I
Okay.
like Gavin Lux. I do. I like Gavin Lux a lot.
And that's a good point about if he played every position, because while the Dodgers brag about, Shohei, he can hit and pitch. Well, how about this guy?
MVP.
Yeah,
Every position. That's valuable stuff.
very valuable.
Gavin Lux addressed the media over the last couple of days, just kind of weighing in on what it means to him to join the Cincinnati Reds organization and what it's like, what it's going to be like playing for Terry Francona. Here's Gavin Lux weighing in. And I'm not sure what room he's at in the house. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Gavin Lux addressing his thoughts on what it means to be a Cincinnati Red.
I got the news. Obviously, it's initially a little bit of a shock. You kind of, you got to pick up and move, and it's a whole new place. But it's the team's full of a lot of really good young players, and obviously having Tito there is amazing. He's one of the most respected managers in the game for a reason. So, it's a really good young team that I'm excited to be a part of, and do whatever I can to help the team win. No one's rarely stays in one place and stays with one team. So. It's a different look. Obviously, it's a way younger team compared to the Dodgers, but just a lot of, like I keep saying, a lot of young talent. I mean, it felt like every time we came to Cincinnati to play these guys, it's like, man, they got really good arms. They know how to game plan, and there's a lot of really good athletes that bounce around, and they do play, kind of guys that play all over, and they run on you and play hard, and it's a good brand of baseball. So. I played, a ton of second base. I played a good amount of left field. Came up as a shortstop and then played there a bunch in 2021 when Seager got hurt. So like those three positions, all pretty comfortable at, and I haven't had too much reps at either really third, first, or right. I'll play wherever these guys need me to help win, and. But really those three spots I feel pretty comfortable about just from getting the reps. But I think, if I have enough time and heads up that, I can be ready to play wherever these guys need me to.
Imagine leaving LA where it's beautiful weather. I know they're going through a little natural disaster right now, but I just mean the temps.
Yeah.
It was depressing leaving the Rose Bowl and the beautiful temps there to come back to this, but that's a kick in the pants for him. And not only are you leaving beautiful weather to come to this, you're leaving the Dodgers win World Series to come to this, who we hope leads to them, winning a World Series. I like Gavin Lux, I really do. Like I said earlier this week, I don't think every move that the Reds make has to be held to, oh man, we're winning a World Series now. I think this was a move that needed to be made. You need to add depth. They moved on from Jonathan India, obviously, and I think that, for the look, they saved money with the draft pick or with the prospect that they gave up to acquire him. You needed to add someone else to kind of replace the production of Jonathan India and another infielder, of course. If we're at the point, as we talked about earlier, if we're at the point where where does he play? How are you going to fit Marte? How are you going to do this? That's a good problem to have. At the end of the day, if we do find out where he's in the outfield, that probably means everyone's done their job. That means Ellie's doing his thing. That means Matt McLain's healthy and playing at second. That means Marte actually looks like he belongs in Major League Baseball and is playing well at third. If he's playing outfield, I guess that's a good thing because that means all the question marks about how that outfield's going to look, the health of Matt McLain and Marte taking that next step. If he's in the outfield, I look at that as a good thing because that means other guys are checking off the box of doing what they're supposed to when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I go back and forth on this because I do think it's great to have a guy like Gavin Lux and Spencer Steer who are able to play any position you put them in, who have that versatility. That's why they're the some of the best utility guys, in Major League Baseball. I respect the hell out of both of them. My only thing is, if you're not going to get a player who plays one position really, really well, right, and you're going to go, and I'm not saying they're half-assing it because that's not what's going on here. They got a good player. But there is something to having a guy that plays a position that's really, really good at it, that's comfortable in it, that excels in it. There's no new pressure. You don't have to go learn the position. These guys are professional athletes. They've been playing baseball their whole life. If you put them in right field, they probably know how to play right field, or at least have some basic understanding of how to play that position. My concern, though, is that you start getting comfortable putting guys in their unnatural positions, and they start becoming players that you didn't sign up for. Because if we put Gavin Lux in left field and he's not the player that he was from last year, 2 years ago, I'm not going to be shocked, right? Because you're taking away what he was with the Dodgers.
Comfort zone. They're yeah.
I think he's going to be a very good Red. I like Gavin Lux a lot. I hope that it doesn't become norm for guys like Matt McLain, Spencer Steer, Gavin Lux, and you just have a bunch of guys that can play all 9 positions. It sounds great on paper, and it is a good thing. I just don't want that to become the norm. I don't want a prospect to come up, top-ranked shortstop. You give him a month, and it's like, all right, we can move him to left field because we can. It doesn't work all the time. Nick Senzel, it notoriously didn't work. So we'll see. I'm going to take this with a grain of salt, but I think Gavin Lux is going to be able to play the outfield a little bit. I hope that he's going to start at third base.
Yeah, I'm basically an even keel 0 on this move, and how I feel about it will be incredibly dependent on what else they do. If Gavin Lux is a cherry on top of the offseason moves that we wanted them to make, then that's incredible and awesome, and this team's going for it, and he's a perfect depth piece. If not, and he's the big trade, I said it when we were talking about it right after it happened, I'll be pretty upset with that, because it feels like a move that you're just, throwing in the towel on this year in terms of getting an outfielder, which Nick Krall even realized or recognized at the start of the offseason. That's the biggest need for this team going into the offseason. And if Gavin Lux, a guy that's played, less than half of his career games in the outfield, how is that your fix when you already have guys, when you've already had guys in the past that you've tried to move out of position that have failed or not been great at it? Lux has a little bit different situation than those. He has more experience in the outfield, but it's just not the fix that would make me happy. And if it's an extra piece, I'll be thrilled. So I'm waiting to finally, grade this until I see what else they do.
Our outfield was said by Nick Krall after the season, it's one of the most important needs for the Reds in 2025.
Yeah.
They haven't fixed it yet. And Jacob's right. It's not a fix for the outfield. It makes the team better, but we still have a very questionable outfield at the moment. Spencer Steer, God love him. Again, not a left fielder. He's a utility guy that plays everywhere. TJ Friedel, I do like. And then you go to right field. Jake Fraley had a very bad season, and Will Benson had a very bad season. So I don't know what we have in right field yet. There's still a ton of question marks. If Gavin Lux is going to be the full-time right fielder, left fielder, I don't know what's going to happen. And I would like to know what's going to happen as we enter the 2025 season, because that's what everybody in the organization said. You said we had to go out and get this fixed. They haven't gotten it fixed yet. There's still time. Nick Krall said there still might be another move. So I'm not going to freak out yet. It's January 9th. There's plenty of time. There's pitchers and catchers report what day? February, mid-February, something like that. So if we wait till mid-February and nothing else gets added, I am going to be upset because the team should have done more.
The big question mark for Matt McLain is whether or not he is going to be healthy, and it sounds like he will be healthy, knock on wood, of course. He's healthy. He's heading out there. You think he's going to be the Reds' second baseman, or is he? Matt McLain had this to say about how he anticipates his role, how it's going to shape up to look like for the Reds in 2025. Here's Matt McLain.
I had figured that before the trade went down, we got Gavin, I was going to move around a little bit just because I did so in the fall league and I had in college, and we have so many players who have the luxury of being able to move around. And that's a plus, honestly, if you look at it. A lot of winning teams do that, to have that versatility. So that's a good thing for me, and I see it as a good thing, that I can play all over, short, second, third, center, wherever. I'll play. But a little bit of both to answer your question. No, I felt great. I definitely needed that. I needed to get out on the field, 1. 2, I needed to compete. And 3, I needed to find out where I was, post shoulder surgery, with my swing, being on the field, playing every day. That went well. There was goods and bads, and there was stuff to learn from and take into the offseason and build on. But I'm 100%, got back on a training program that I didn't do in the offseason of 23 due to my oblique, and now I'm back on it, and I feel great.
Again, Matt McLain weighing in after getting his thoughts after the addition of Gavin Lux from earlier in the week. And Matt McLain, who's one of the few guys that we think, we know who he is. We know he's a second baseman. Or is he? Because it sounds like you never know. The batting order is going to be different every time, which that's normal in Major League Baseball now. We've been through that. But, we have no clue where any of these guys are going to play on any given day. And we've weighed in on this, too. Do you want that guy that is an elite third baseman and can't play anywhere else, or a guy that is an average third baseman, an average second baseman, an outfielder, and is very versatile? I'm not saying Matt McLain's average, but at the same time, there has to be some kind of role definition. Or is this just the changing of baseball and we all have to get on board with it? You heard Matt McLain. A lot of winning teams do this. Do they do it to this level, though, where they don't have one set? I mean, Ellie's the only guy I know that right now has a set position. Even Tyler Stevenson's one of those you see kind of rotating between first and catcher. So I don't know. I don't know if we're overreacted to this or not, but it's interesting hearing Matt McLain, who's one of the few that we thought had just a standard set position, may not be the case this year.
Yeah, I think we've said we'd rather have guys with set positions than the utility guys, but I think the way you make a bunch of utility guys work is having as many versatile players as possible, because then you can see if they can play multiple positions average, then you find out which one they're best at, and you can kind of mix and match the lineup. I hope they find locked in positions by opening day. Use spring training to shuffle these guys around, and then lock it in by opening day. I don't have a problem with them not knowing where guys are going to play right now. You have a lot of young pieces coming in, and that's fine. I have a problem if we're sitting here in the middle of the summer and we still have guys playing 6 positions. And injuries happen, and versatility helps, and I get all that, and it's necessary. But good teams have a utility guy maybe. And then they have 3 outfielders and infielders and a third baseman and a first baseman. Like, it's not rocket science here. And I think maybe these guys get locked into a position and they're great at it, and that's awesome. But if we end up, reverting Matt McLain, who I think is a potential Gold Glover all-star at second base, and I think most people would agree with that, if we end up reverting him to, third base or trying him at a bunch of different places just because, Gavin Lux is better at second than he is at third, then what are we really gaining there? Because you're hurting your middle infield by having a worse second baseman just because he's better than third. I think those are the kind of situations you can back yourself into here, and that's the only thing that worries me. But look, I think a lot of these young guys are really, really talented, and if they have the versatility to play a bunch of different places, then let's find where they're best and get the best 9 guys out there. I think that's a good thing with the youth on the team, is we'll have the ability to try that and mix and match and get those best 9 players on the field. And I think that is kind of crucial for the Reds. So the utility is not the worst thing, but you certainly hope some of these guys can lock into a position just for their own sake. I mean, we've seen even how much better Tyler Stevenson's gotten at catching when he's, dialed back the first base play and focused on that, position. We talk about it in other sports all the time. If you play one spot, you get better at it. You lock in and you learn that spot like the back of your hand, and you're better at it. And I know baseball's a little bit different, but I just have a hard time believing players can be their best when they're playing a billion different positions.
Having the ability to play, and that's a strength, having guys who can do that. But a lot of times that's our ace in the hole if we all of a sudden experience the injury bug.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we have that, now we have that opportunity to where guys can play multiple positions and bail us out there. But at the same time, to have the whole plan be everyone could play so many different positions, I don't know. But nonetheless.
It'll be an experiment this year. Matt McLain, there's talks of him going to center field, moving to the outfield. For a guy that's had injury issues with the Reds, that's something I wouldn't personally want to see, given the fact that there's so many more ways to get injured in the outfield. But if that's the route they go, that's the route they go. And Reed makes a solid point. There is a lot of pressure on Matt McLain this year.
Yeah.
Probably more pressure on Matt McLain than anybody else, him and Ellie De La Cruz. So if the front office, I'm not going to say if they cared, because I think they do care now, but I think that the best way to win baseball games is to have your core group of guys and then build around them with solid veteran players. And they've done an okay job at it. There's just a lot of work to be done still. And I don't think there's a lot of work that the Reds are going to do in the next month in terms of signing a bunch of guys, trading for a bunch of guys. I think we're one move away from being done. And I think it's going to be a pretty small move as well. I imagine a Jesse Winker type in the outfield is who the Reds are going to look for in the next 3 weeks or so.
The reaction to that will be interesting. Yeah. I'm very curious to see what that reaction will be if that happens. All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Elliott Rooney, Jacob Tissett, Casey McAllister in the producer chair. We'll step away for a few moments. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Elliott Rearing, Jacob Tissett. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Casey McAllister in the producer chair. We're all back in studio today.
That's right.
Monumental,
Yes.
I would say.
Craig would be so proud of me, the host, being in the host chair in studio. You know, I'm just saying, I want to.
Craig loves you more than you know.
I want to make him proud. I do. I really do. All right, but we welcome you back again, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Off and rolling here. We just heard some audio from, of course, Gavin Lux addressing what it means to him to play for the Reds. The one thing I thought about, too, that is pretty cool is the fact that you hear every time a new player is coming to Cincinnati, they keep bringing up Tito. And this isn't a shot at David Bell. But no one was like, I'm excited to get to Cincinnati to play for David Bell. And that's not a shot at David Bell, because I don't think there's a lot of managers in baseball that a lot of guys are like, man, I can't wait to get to so-and-so and play for the. I think there's less than a handful of managers in baseball that I think truly move the needle, where players are like, well, if I have to go to Cincinnati, at least I get to play for Tito. I think we knew that when it was announced that Francona was going to be the manager for the Reds. But I think you've already heard it. Every time the Reds make a move, Francona's name is mentioned in every single soundbite from these new players coming to the Reds, and even the current players who've been on the roster talking about how excited they are to play for Francona. I do always forget about that, because when you talk about free agency, yes, it's going to come down to how much money the Reds are willing to spend, but you know, if money is equal and it's a tug of war of where you want to go, Francona might be the deal breaker, might be the tiebreaker in a lot of those situations.
And that's why I thought he was a great signing, is because he has that league-wide respect.
Yep.
We haven't had a guy like that in a long time. Dusty Baker was the last time we had that. I think players are well aware that the Cincinnati Reds organization probably isn't one of the most desirable teams to play for. I think that's been made very clear. I think, you know, when we had the loss of like that whole 2021 team, whenever that was, and they all came out and said nobody wants to leave Cincinnati, but that's business, and we know how the Cincinnati Reds do business. It's not good. But when you have the tiebreaker, as Kinner said, being, well, we have one of the best managers in baseball, and he's been that historically, maybe a Hall of Famer, then yeah, I think that it earns the respect of some of the guys looking for a new team, trying to prove themselves, because this is like the Reds right now seem to be like a prove-it team. Like if you're a solid baseball player looking for a new contract, you want to boost some stats and maybe advance your career to an even better team, that's fine. But you want to come to Cincinnati and try to do that. It's a prove-it team. And I think proving it with Terry Francona will go a long way for your resume. And that's a massive pro for the Reds bringing him here. Massive pro.
Yeah, and that love from the players and everything like that, that's why it's so big outside of just the wins. Obviously, he's won a World Series, and that culture comes to Cincinnati with him. But, yeah, everyone is excited. I mean, we saw him fly down to the Dominican and hang out talk to Elliott and Noelvi and all those guys right after he got hired. That's incredible. That's not stuff that we necessarily saw David Bell doing. And whether he was doing it in private or not, we don't know. But the fact that Terry's out there doing it publicly, it means a lot.
So we talked about, the fact that, with the addition, the new players to we're talking about the versatility of all the players right now.
Sure.
When it comes to these players on this roster, which is a strength when you talk about, like, if the injury bug hits this team, the fact that you have the players who are versatile, that aren't locked into just one position, they can move around a bit. But at the same time, you have to operate as if your team is healthy, and you got to head into opening day knowing who your first baseman is, knowing who your third baseman is, second baseman, knowing who your outfield is. And I'm not saying you always have those answers by opening day, but you'd like to have a clear picture, or at least a clearer picture as we get closer to that, because it's not that far off in the distance. Opening day is in March, which is wild, and we're already inching closer towards mid-January at this point. Pitchers and catchers report in a month, which is pretty crazy as well. But we talked about, obviously, Matt McLain weighing in on, the fact that he's anticipating playing multiple positions this upcoming season, which is something that shouldn't surprise us, but we thought he was a locked-in second baseman. One of the reasons we had to get rid of Jonathan India is because where's India going to play? Matt McLain, second base. That's Matt McLain's spot. And it's led to us kind of really talking about what's going to happen with the infield, what's going to happen with the outfield, which they haven't addressed yet. You'd hope yet being the key word. But buy or sell, opening day, Noelvi Marte being the Reds' starting third baseman. Will he be at third base in the lineup on opening day for the Cincinnati Reds, buy or sell?
I would say no. I think this Gavin Lux move was maybe Noelvi's not as good as we thought kind of thing, because he went down to the Dominican League this summer and really struggled. Kind of similar numbers to what he had when he was with the Reds last season. And obviously, I think we've all kind of moved on from him being the 2023 version of himself. But if he can even be a shadow of that, he'll be a great, great player for this team. I still have faith in him being a real part of this roster moving forward and a part of this infield and a part of this core, but it's not going to be on opening day.
There's a better than not chance he's not on the opening day roster, let alone be the starting third baseman for the Reds. I don't think that he's going to play a ton this year. The only way he's going to play a ton is if, A, we have injuries, and B, he proves it in AAA.
The only way he's on the opening day roster is if he's the starting third baseman, right?
Correct.
Otherwise, he would start in AAA.
Correct. That's what I think.
I agree.
Noelvi Marte, in 30 games in 2023, phenomenal. He hit .316. He slugged .456, OPS of .822. He was incredible. Last year, in 60 games, he had a -2 WAR. He hit 4 home runs, and he hit .210. And his defense was terrible. I understand regression, but this is a complete disappearing act. He's not there anymore. The Noelvi Marte that we thought is not the Noelvi Marte that's here. He's not. And we can say that we're going to give him time, and we will. He's very young. What is he, 23, 22? I don't know how old this kid is. But as of right now, if you're trying to win now, there's certain experiments I'm willing to roll with in the Major League roster. CES is one of those experiments I'm willing to roll with. Noelvi Marte is not an experiment I'm willing to roll with at this very moment, because Noelvi Marte is not giving you your best chance to win. Usually, like we say, you don't know what you have with these guys, yada, yada, yada. We know, unfortunately, what we have with Noelvi Marte at this very second, and it's not a good baseball player.
Look, I want to pick up with that because I want to feed off that here in a moment. So, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll pick up with this Noelvi Marte conversation when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, and the producer chair, Elliott Rearing, Jacob Tissett. Hour number 2 for our listeners in Dayton on 1410 ESPN Radio. We were talking about Noelvi Marte, and you brought up a good point, Elliott, about there's some guys, you have to throw them out there, and what do we have with that individual? It might be too early to know what we have with Noelvi Marte, but the bigger question I have is, who are the Cincinnati Reds? And what I mean by that, what is the front office, how do they perceive themselves heading into this upcoming season? Is this a rebuilding team? Are they still rebuilding?
That's a good question.
Because if they are rebuilding, Noelvi Marte has to be the third baseman on opening day. You have to know. The only way to rebuild is to know what you have with
If they're
these guys,
rebuilding,
right?
they also don't go sign a big outfield bat.
And yeah, so that's why it's are they rebuilding? Or if all the talk of, the NL Central is winnable, they want to be competitive, and I hate that. I hate when teams say we want to be competitive, because being competitive doesn't mean you're going to be a playoff team. The Reds have been 80-plus wins and competitive, not a playoff team. They need to be a playoff team. But that's why I'm curious too. Is this team, what are they striving for? What do they perceive themselves as in 2025? Because if they see themselves as contenders, Noelvi Marte cannot be the third baseman, right? On opening day, because you can't risk losing games trying to force guys out there who aren't ready to play or aren't good enough to play at this moment. If you're rebuilding, you do. That's why a couple years ago when they were expected to lose 100 games, that's why, they were like, well, let's call up Elliott. Let's call up Matt McLain, Spencer Steer. Let's just we're going to lose 100-plus games. Let's throw out all the guys that are, we're ready to call up from the minors and see what we have. That's what a rebuilding team does. If you're trying to contend, you don't call up all those rookies. That's what made the story of the Reds 2 years ago so intriguing, is because they had no business being where they were standings and record-wise, and they were in the mix. But I'm curious, who are the Cincinnati Reds? Are they a rebuilding team in 2025? Because we as fans never like to talk that way. We want to talk about how this team is going to compete with the Cubs and with the Brewers and with the the National League in general, with all the top teams in baseball. But maybe they're not there yet. Maybe this is the front office telling us, hey, we're just getting some guys that are versatile to play multiple positions so we could find out what we have, because they're telling you we don't know who we have at third base. We don't know who's at second. We know they're not looking at shortstops, by the way. They know what they have at shortstop. And we're looking at guys that can maybe play some outfield a little bit. Like, they don't know what they have. I can't tell if this team is telling us that they are rebuilding or ready to contend. And maybe the easy answer is a little of both. But I don't know if you could be a little of both and achieve what you're trying to achieve.
I think they're in the middle. I think they're in the middle right now. I don't think they have a set identity. And that was my issue last year, the entire season, is I don't know who the Reds are. They overperformed, and you come into last year and you drastically underperform or maybe too high expectations. This year, when you bring in a new manager and you're building off of some really good performances, I don't think the goal is to rebuild. I think you've rebuilt. I think you have the pieces you want. We're not going to change that. There's a couple question marks, and they're going to find out what those are this year. And I think there's maybe this year of limbo. I think they could win the NL Central. I think they could make the playoffs this year. I don't think they can win 90 games, but I think they could sneak in. They could fight a little bit, be competitive. But I don't think the Reds are trying to say that they're better than they are. I think the identity right now is we're scrappy, and that's how we'll play this season. Eventually that has to change. Eventually you do have to have a set third baseman, first baseman. You have to have roles on the team that we know who's going to play there coming into a season and be confident that those players are going to excel. Right now they don't have that, I would say. They've got an okay bullpen. They've got a starting pitching rotation that's solid, if healthy. You have an outfield that has a bunch of question marks, and you've got an infield outside of the two middle guys. We don't know what they are. I wouldn't say that that's a team that's, the world's best team in the Central. I don't think that's the world's best team in the National League. It does seem like it's a rebuild, but I think we're a step above the rebuild. We're not fully there, but we're not fully at rebuild. We're right in the middle. And I don't like being in that spot personally, but we're going to sit through this year, and let's see if they overperform again, and maybe they can find a way into the playoffs. The NL Central's bad. It's really, really bad. I think the Cubs are bad, and the Cubs are the favorite to win. I think the St. Louis Cardinals are going to quit. I think the Pirates are the Pirates, and maybe the Brewers can get in because the Brewers somehow always get in. But the Brewers are losing pieces left and right too. The NL Central is as bad now as it's been probably in my lifetime. One of the worst Centrals this season you're going to see. I bet the winner does not have 86 wins. So if the Reds are able to win that, I'd take it as a big step forward. Not to where I want to be fully, but we know where I want to be fully. It's competing for a championship. But I think the first step is winning the division, or at least competing for it. And I hope the Reds are able to do that this year.
I think that's why a lot of us hoped, or at least placed the bar maybe optimistically, that was going to be what happened last year, because that is step one. You compete for the division, then you compete for the play or a better seed or whatever, and then you focus on winning a series and advancing in the playoffs. And last year the Reds didn't check off step one, which seemed to kind of push things another year. Maybe they can get two in 1 year, which would be great, and that'd be awesome, and maybe advance in the playoffs too. Hell, that would rock. But I just feel like last year going the way it did, I'm not saying we're in a rebuild still, but it reset things a little bit to where this year is last year.
Yeah.
And this year we're going to compete to try to win a pretty bad NL Central, and then that's it. Like, I think that's the bar for this team, is you try to win the division, and then you hope that they can do that, and then next year we focus on, the next step, and that's advancing in the playoffs. And I know that's not necessarily what Reds fans want to hear. We've been sick of this for a long time, and we want to win, and I'm right there with you guys, but I just don't feel like with what we saw last year, the Reds front office is operating with much speed to get this done. Urgency.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. They're not operating with much urgency just because they didn't see enough from these young guys last year. And as much as we want to get mad about that, I think it's relatively fair. I mean, maybe they are more willing to spend $30 million a year on a Santander if they won, 83 games last year with this core or something like that. We're trending in the same direction as they were in 23. I think it's just a tough sell to say this team with most of your core either injured or underperforming they're going to all be good next year, and we need to go spend to bolster them. They need to bolster them for sure to have a chance. You have to fill in the holes around this roster, but I just think it's a tough sell for the front office to go all the way in when you couple last year being so far below expectations and the loss of the TV deal. Money's going to be tight. I think it's a perfect storm for them to have an excuse to not go all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, talked about the NL Central news kind of that's coming out, something to keep an eye on. The Cardinals made it be known towards the end of last season that they were not going to be aggressive this offseason, that they weren't going to be heavy spenders. The Cardinals, I mean, in my lifetime, are just a constant. They reminded me like the Spurs for me growing up in the NBA. They were just a constant, that's kind of the Cardinals, but that's kind of not been the case as of late. And Nolan Arenado has reportedly been more open-minded to waiving his no-trade clause to more teams in the last 24 hours. So the Cardinals are shopping him. So the Cardinals aren't adding; they are moving on from guys.
I believe they had a trade for him in place with the Astros earlier this offseason that he vetoed.
Yeah.
With his no-trade clause.
Which, why would you veto a trade to the Astros? Like, that's what's crazy to me. So, but John Morosi just tweeted out a little bit ago, or X'd out. Do we still say it doesn't matter?
Well, it's X. Everything's happening on X. It's the Everything app.
It's the Everything app.
The Mariners and Tigers are options. Yeah, XTV. That sounds like a bad thing, but no, like that's what they're coming. No, I'm just saying. Like they're
Elon's
doing,
Twitter.
Elon's
Twitter.
No, they are. It's supposed to be like a competition like Netflix and stuff.
All right.
Like,
all right.
We'll get
I'm
to
in.
there. But,
I'm in.
But no, the Mariners.
It is all, I mean, as much as we say it is all happening on X.
It's a good bit.
There you go. The Mariners and Tigers are options for Nolan Arenado if the Red Sox and Cardinals aren't able to reach an agreement. So apparently the Red Sox are deep in conversations for him as well. But, like, I mean, the NL Central is what? The Cubs obviously made one of the bigger additions. They've made the biggest addition this offseason of any team in the Central. The Brewers are just quiet. They've moved on from a piece or two, but they're not the – but last year we were sleeping on the Brewers, and the Brewers were just a constant all last season.
That's my promise to everyone is I won't sleep on the Brewers. I don't care what moves they make.
In fact, we're going to do what he's doing.
We're
going to wear our Brewers gear.
Yeah, no, I won't even because the reverse jinx doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they have in Milwaukee. They're going to win enough games to be at the top of the NL Central.
They always do, which is unfortunate. And
it stinks.
They never have a great offense. They never have, I feel like, the best pitching, but now they're going to, like right now, and they've had good pitching, by the way. That was a wrong statement. But I've never felt like they've had enough on the offensive side of the baseball to get the job done. They have. So I shouldn't doubt them, but I am. And I will.
They did get rid of Adames, so.
That's true.
Maybe.
Devin Williams is gone.
I thought Council was going to do him in. I really did.
Did you?
Yeah, going to Chicago. I thought that was going to do him in. But Devil Magic.
So
it's in the cheese.
It is in the cheese. They always beat us.
So the thing that's, so the Reds, when you think about the Cubs, like you always think, oh man, the Reds can't beat the Cubs. They're like, 36-38 against, they're 38-36 against the Cubs since 2020. Like, they have a winning record against the Cardinals since 2012. Like, we think that, oh, man, they can't beat the Cardinals. They can't beat the Cubs. The team that bludgeons the Reds more than anybody is the Brewers.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, we act like, oh, the Cubs, it's just a mountain they can't climb. That's not. I don't think they fear the Cubs the way we felt like they did for the longest time. Same thing, of course, with the Cardinals at this point. The Pirates are the Pirates. It's all about the Brewers. I mean, I'm not saying you overlook the Cubs or anything like that, but it really does come down to the Reds and how they perform against the Brewers if they want any shot of winning the Central this upcoming season. So
pretty clearly a top dog in this division. And I know the Cubs have the bigger names and the Cardinals have the history and, the Reds have the young core, but the Brewers, they've won this division and been at the top of this division if they haven't won it for a long, long time. I mean, and however many moves everyone else makes, until the Brewers don't win it, it's their division.
We know the Pirates suck.
Well, Paul Skeens is like minus money to win the Cy Young.
Here's the thing about winning the Cy Young and being a great starting pitcher. That's
once every 5 days.
Once every 5 days.
Well, 2 out every 5 days. Jarrett
2.
Jones.
He's okay. He's good.
Can you win that if your team is bad? Is there examples of that?
I think
he did.
He did.
Oh, Jesus. Yep. The Admiral. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench when we come back. So yes, you can win a Cy Young and your team be bad. Imagine that.
I think it's happened a lot.
Yeah, my bad. But you had to go back like years.
Yeah. No, we
A
did.
year. You had to go back a year.
You had to go back a month.
A year.
A month. I
A
think.
month because it was December
was
when they
late,
announced
yeah.
the damn things.
You had to go back a month, to be fair to you.
Did you? I sent this to you the other day. I sent you the Shannon Sharp just got owned by Dan Orlovsky.
Oh, that was
It was
awesome.
the funniest damn thing I'd ever seen. Because
Dan
like,
Orlovsky changed his profile picture on Twitter.
to that, and
the
I'm
point.
like, I was like, oh no, because I didn't even know where it was going. But when he did that and Shannon kept going, I'm like, oh no, he's about to fall off the cliff. And I made the joke. I'm like, that's how I visualize me looking when Jacob has caught me in a few of those where I have nothing to say back. So you heard Shannon. He was like, he just started
did.
making these weird noises.
He started just saying vowels, and
Yes.
that's usually what people do when they get caught. It's just
A-E-I-O-U.
yeah.
You can't make me laugh.
We're at 3.
Boom, baby.
Can we get to 5?
I think we can get to 5.
You're not allowed to make me laugh. I'm trying not to laugh because it makes me cough. But yeah, listen. Good. Let's see what happens. Anyway, moving on. NFL playoffs. This is a very serious sports talk show. As if you've listened today, you're just hearing people cough and hack and talk about the weather. But this is a serious sports talk show, and I've been begging Kenner to do this. We're doing fraud or for real.
I
We're
think
bringing it back.
we've benefited by pushing this.
We have.
We're
I
closer
think-
to the playoffs
correct.
now. Yeah.
We have. It's more lively right now. So we're gonna do fraud or for real for the the current NFL playoffs. Every team that's there, and we're gonna go down the line and we're gonna see if they're a fraud or if they're for real.
Now, question before we start.
Okay.
Fraud or for real parameters. Because this is a definitions show.
Sure.
Anyone that's watched this for a long time knows that this is a definitions show.
Sure.
Fraud or for real being matchup dependent. Like some
Nope.
of these teams play a harder game in the first round.
Nope, it's just their team.
Okay,
It's
cool.
just what they look like right now in the postseason.
Love it.
So that's what we're doing. So we'll start with the NFC first. We'll do NFC first. The Green Bay Packers, 11-6, third in the NFC North. Are they a fraud or are they for real? I'll go first. I think they're for real. I think the Packers are legitimately good. I think Matt LaFleur is a good coach. He's one of the best. He's a top 10 coach in the NFL. Josh Jacobs is having a great season. You did lose Christian Watson, but I think Jordan Love is good enough to make that work. I don't think they've really had a number one receiver this season.
Not at all.
So I think having that large group of guys that can make plays at any given moment, that's a big thing. Tucker Kraft is very, very good. Dontavian Wicks, who's like wide receiver 4, has made a lot of big plays down the stretch. Jaden Reed, who was supposed to be, I think, their number one, or it was some point during the season. You know, he's lost targets, but other guys have stepped up. Josh Jacobs having a career year in Green Bay. I think they're legitimately good, and I think if there was ever a wild card team, in fact, out of the 6 wild card teams, they are my favorite to have a shot at the Super Bowl. For real.
I think if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have been very confident in for real. They struggled down the stretch. They didn't look great in their last 2 games. A close loss to the Vikings. I know they're a really good team, but they lost to the Bears, which they haven't done in a long, long time. Jordan Love got banged up. He hurt his throwing hand. And then Malik Willis got banged up right after. They said Jordan Love's trending towards being 100%, and he's definitely going to play this week, even if he's not. But I'm scared going against that Philly defense. I know you said matchups don't matter, so I think they're for real. I just think they might be in a bad spot right now this week.
I think they're good. I think they're a good team. I wasn't super high on them coming into the season. I didn't think they were going to be a bad team, but I didn't think that they were going to be a powerhouse either. And to be honest, I think the perception of them would be different if you didn't have 2 teams that were 14-2 heading into the final week of the regular season fighting for that division. But I'm going to – I hate calling them frauds because that just sounds so mean. Like they're a good team. But I don't.
You got to be mean.
They're frauds. I don't buy them winning a Super Bowl this year, so I'll say frauds.
Out on the Green Bay Packers, huh? That's fine. The Washington Commanders, 12-5, second in the NFC East. Are they a fraud or are they for real?
I think the Commanders are frauds. I think Jaden Daniels is really, really good, but I think we've seen that team. They're 12-5, but we've seen that team really finish the season strong, but it's when they've played the good teams in this league, they've struggled a little bit. I mean, they lost to the Steelers and the Eagles, and then they lost to the Buccaneers. They got blown out in week 1. They lost by 17, and they're going back to Tampa this week. I think the Jaden Daniels dream run comes to an end in Tampa. I don't think the Commanders are a real Super Bowl threat. It's a great season. It's a great story, but I think they're frauds.
I think they're frauds. I would say it wouldn't shock me if they went on a little bit of a run because of how talented the offense looks at times. but I think they're capable of falling asleep just as much as they are being awake for this entire postseason. I'm going to say they're fraudulent. I'm looking back at their schedules, or their schedule this season. Just not a ton of wins over any winning teams, really. I'm looking back. The Bengals.
When we were playing the worst football
The
of the year.
The Bengals. I'm pretty sure the Bengals are the only team above 500 that they've beaten this season.
They beat the
The Eagles. The Eagles and the Bengals. Sorry, you mentioned the Eagles. They beat 2 teams above 500. Outside of that, nothing. So I'm going to say they're frauds.
Remember that Eagles game was when Hurts got hurt as well.
That's right.
So, I mean, they
That's right.
won a very close game
That's
down
right.
the stretch
That
when
did-
Hurts got hurt.
That's right. That didn't even count.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're 12-5 with 0 really playoff wins, it seems.
So I love the Commanders. I think they're a great story. They're a great benchmark for when your team's bad and picking at the top of the draft, that if you hit the quarterback right, make a couple good moves in the offseason, you're going to have a lot of fun the next year. But outside of that, feel-good story, great season. Seems like Washington's kind of shaking off the perception issues that franchise has had for a while. At the end of the day, though, when it comes to being a contender or pretender or a fraud, I think they're a fraud. I don't think they're a true Super Bowl contender. I do think this matchup with the Bucs is interesting, but I don't look at them as a Super Bowl contender. So
I think
I'll
it'll
say
be one of the
fraud.
better games of the first round.
I agree.
I'm very, very excited for that one.
I agree a lot. I agree very much with that because I think I'm going to take. I'm probably going to take the Bucs as of now, but I like them. The Vikings, they are 14-3, second in the NFC North. One hell of a season. Obviously, that season ended in kind of a bad way, I guess, on Sunday Night Football. Excuse me. I'm gonna say they're fraudulent, only because I think that Sam Darnold at any moment is capable of seeing ghosts. That's why. I think the team itself is pretty solid. I think the defense has been okay. I think the running game has been, good enough. Aaron Jones is having a solid year. You have a lot of talent, wide receiving wise and tight end wise. Hockenson, Addison, and Jefferson are incredible. I think they've got a lot of pieces there. Just the one piece that I have doubts about is their quarterback. And that's something you just can't have a doubt about. I'm going to say the Vikings don't win a playoff game, and I'm going to say they're fraudulent.
You kind of towed the line there to start. I'm much more strongly in that camp. I think they're definitely frauds, and I think that decision was made for me against the Lions. When you put up 9 points in a playoff game and they must win, we know how much the difference between a 1 seed and a 5 seed is in the NFL. It's astronomical, and it's crazy that they had that situation in front of them when you're 14-2, that you have a chance to go on the road for the playoffs. But that's what it was. The NFC North was historic this year, and the Vikings got the short end of the stick, and I think that game is going to send ripples throughout the rest of their season, even though it won't be a long time. I think the Vikings are frauds, and I think they're going to probably be frauds for a while now because it seems like they're going to lose Brian Flores. They have a quarterback decision to make this year. It seems like that game against Detroit, losing that 1 seed, was a big turning point for the Minnesota franchise.
So I was very down on Sam Darnold coming into the season, admitted I was wrong about Sam Darnold, and I think you have to admit that. I mean, that's not even an opinion. He was fantastic this season. But I think I was surprised at Sam Darnold's season that he had. I mean, he silenced a lot of people. He's put the Vikings in a tough situation because you have to sit there and decide, man, is this who he is? Or are we going to let a guy that put up MVP caliber numbers just walk out because you don't come across quarterbacks that are capable of that, and as young as he is, that's tough. But I think what ended up happening is the Vikings didn't have a whole lot of expectations coming into the year, especially when you're drafting a quarterback in the top 10, that the quarterback goes down for a season-ending injury at the beginning.
Unanimously picked last in that division.
Yeah. And you're going in and you're just playing with house money. You're playing loose. If you win, it's great. If you lose, you're supposed to. And I think we saw for the first time, I don't think the Vikings faced pressure all season until this Lions game. And I think Sam Darnold, the second that, oh man, I have to be that guy. That's what I said last week. I was like, man, if the Vikings play well against the Lions and they beat the Lions and Sam Darnold puts up 275, 3
100%.
touchdowns, I would be screaming from the mountaintop that he needs to be way ahead of Josh Allen in the MVP conversation.
He went 18 of 41.
Yes, for
For 160 yards.
Yeah. I mean, he's only sacked twice. I mean, it's not like he was facing a ton of pressure. I mean, at the end of the day, Sam Darnold reminded everybody, and I'm not saying I'm taking any of my criticisms back because he was great this year, but he reminded everybody why people were skeptical of picking the Vikings with Sam Darnold leading the way to begin with.
For sure.
Sam Darnold, it was easy to be him when there was no pressure. The second the pressure of winning a division title and the playoffs are here, he looked like that Sam Darnold that made him a journeyman. That's why I'm out on the Vikings to say all that you said. I think they're frauds
So
because of that.
We all think the Rams are going to win?
Yeah, I do.
Vikings are winning.
Vikings are winning? Okay. Well, if the Vikings were to lose.
I'm picking the Vikings to lose.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
If the Vikings were to lose this first round, what's the QB plan next year? Sam Darnold looks terrible against the Lions.
It depends how bad he looks.
And he doesn't look good again. Not that bad, but he doesn't look good again. He doesn't win you the game. He doesn't necessarily lose it for you, but he doesn't look great.
I still think you have to ride with him because of what he did this year.
In what way?
You have to give him a 1-year deal.
I don't think so. I think you tag him.
Really?
I think you franchise tag him, and you have JJ back him up. And
What
if
would that
JJ's
tag number
healthy,
be?
it's decently high, but I would not risk. There's no way you can get him on a 1 or 2 year deal. There's no way. Because he hits the open market, someone's going to give him $35 to $40 million.
I wouldn't trade JJ McCarthy. Like I saw that being discussed too.
I also don't want to go into the season with a rookie that's coming off a torn ACL as my only option.
Yeah.
With the
There was
roster that's
question
clearly
marks
ready to
already
win.
before injury.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that the Vikings' decision maybe got easier with how Sam Darnold's playing. You tag him next year, and you have both quarterbacks, and you see how it goes in the preseason.
That's fair. Speaking of the Rams, are they a fraud or for real? I've gone back and forth on this. I don't think the Rams are a Super Bowl contender, but they have fought this season. Like they've had some big wins. It feels like that Rams-Lions game was 5 years ago, and it was that opening day? I don't know when that was, but they've had a hell of a season, and they've overcome, I think, an expectation that they weren't going to be very good this year, and to see where they are right now, it's pretty impressive. I'm gonna say the Rams are for real in the fact that I think they're good enough to fight, and I think they're consistent enough to know what you have every game. I think Matthew Stafford's a Hall of Famer. Kyron Williams is having another career year. You have two of the best, maybe the best wide receiver duo in the NFL behind the Bengals. So I think there's a chance the Rams can maybe surprise a couple teams. I'm going to say they're for real.
So I'm going to say they're frauds just because of the defense, but I love McVay. I love Kupp, and I love Nakua, and I love their quarterback. I love everything about the Rams, but that defense, when you go, they give up more yards per game than the Bengals. They give up more rushing yards per game than the Bengals. That defense is why I look at them as frauds. But offensively, they're kind of a poor man's Bengals, even though they're in the playoffs, as wild as that sounds. They're all offense, no defense. They're two great wide receivers, very, very good quarterback. That's why I think they're a poor man's Bengals. It's all about the quarterback and the two wide receivers having to overcome the deficiencies on the defensive end. They can run the football, though, so that helps balance them out a little bit, too. But I think they're frauds just because of how bad that defense is. That defense, I'm looking at it now, and, of course, it moved on me. But, yeah, their defense is ranked lower than the Cincinnati Bengals. It's not
been
a
a
good
tough
defense.
unit.
6,000 yards they've given up on the year.
They potentially have the Defensive Rookie of the Year in Jared Verse as well, which is kind of crazy to say with how bad that unit's been. Echoing everything Kinner just said, I think they're frauds, too. But if we're power ranking the frauds we've said so far and the frauds that I'm going to say on the other side as we keep going, they're towards the bottom of that list. They're the closest fraud to being for real, I think. It takes one Stafford game and the defense to lock in for 60 minutes, and they can absolutely make a run because I think Matthew Stafford's a top 5 quarterback in the playoffs and top 10 quarterback in football. So I absolutely think the Rams can do it, but because of what we've seen from their defense so far, I'm going to say they're a fraud as well.
Buccaneers, another 10-7 team that won their division. They win the NFC South. Are they a fraud or for real?
All the way in on the Bucs.
Really?
All the way in on the Bucs. I think they're for real. I think getting Mike Evans back, they would have been well better than 10-7 if he had been healthy all year. There's no doubt in my mind about that. They wouldn't have lost a couple of those games they lost in the middle, and then we'd be talking about them completely differently. It wouldn't be the normal, 10-7, you won the NFC South, you snuck into the playoffs. I think it is a little bit different conversation already with how Baker played and the numbers he's put up, and everyone does recognize how good Mike Evans is, but that backfield has been incredible. Bucky Irving and Rashad White have been a great duo in Tampa. I'm all in on that Bucs team. I think they're definitely for real. I don't know if they can win a Super Bowl, but they can definitely make a run.
Who's the third guy, too? They added the third guy this year, the third running back. Oh, what was that guy's name?
Oh, Sean Tucker?
That's it.
Yeah, Sean Tucker's pleased with his performance. Syracuse.
Love that. I think the Bucs are okay. I think they're fraudulent a little bit just because I think they've had a decent amount of, I want to call them Bengals halves, where it looks like Baker and the offense are inept or the defense is inept. They've had a lot of incomplete games this season.
Yeah.
They win games, and that's all that matters, obviously, but I do think there's a little bit of a fraud in them. You take the Panthers to overtime earlier in the season, you squeak out, a couple wins.
They definitely have fraud tendencies.
The Saints this Sunday, they looked like they were going to lose to the Saints, who were playing for nothing. I think they're fraudulent. I don't see them advancing past the Commanders. I think there's a chance they win that. They don't advance past that win if they were to win it.
Man, I think the NFC should just drop out of the playoffs at this point. I mean, we're just out on them altogether. No, that's sarcasm.
I have a pretty large wager on the AFC to win the Super Bowl.
Because I think there's so many frauds in the NFC. I think that's what makes this wide open in the NFC. So it opens the door for the Packers. Like, I feel better about the Packers than the Vikings. I said the Packers were frauds earlier. I actually feel better about the Packers, even they have to play the Eagles. I feel better about the Packers than I do about the Vikings in this postseason, despite the great regular season they had. I love the Bucs, but the defense, again, I think they've given up. I think it's less than 100 yards is the difference between the Bengals. And I'm not picking on the Bengals. I just use them as a good
barometer.
Well, because the defense. Like, we talk about these teams, we think about their identity being offense, but we forget about, man, look what kept the Bengals out of the playoffs, and it was that defense and the slow start. But, no, I think the Bucs have as good a chance of anyone because, like I said, all things being equal, there's a lot of teams there's a lot of deficiencies. But there's a lot of really good teams, but there's not one super strong team out there. The Lions, I know we're going to get to in a moment. We'll get to them. But, like, the Bucs, I'm going to say, yeah, I'll buy into them. As long as Baker plays like he's played all year, he's thrown for 4,500 yards. He's completed over 70% of his passes. He's thrown for over 40 touchdowns. You know, he's thrown the Baker interceptions, of course, and that could be costly in a close game. But I'm going to roll with Baker. I'm going to roll with the Bucs. So I'm going to put them as a fringe contender, if that's how you want to word it.
Eagles, 14-3, first in the NFC East, dominant season. I think there was people, including myself, that were down on the Eagles heading into this year. They look absolutely unstoppable. They look incredible if Jalen Hurts is out there. As long as it's not Kenny Pickett or whoever else is back there, I think they've got a chance to win a Super Bowl this season. Saquon Barkley, no words needed there. They have two very good wide receivers and a very good tight end in Dallas Goedert. I think the defense is good enough. I think the Eagles are a complete team and probably should be second favorites in the Super Bowl betting odds. They might be. I don't know what they are. I love the Eagles. I think they're good enough to win a Super Bowl. I think they're as for real as it gets.
Yesterday, Jalen Hurts was released from concussion protocol. It was one of the longest concussion protocol stretches we've seen in a long time, especially for a star player. Was over a week. I think it was like right about 10 days when he got out. So that was certainly scary. But now that he practiced yesterday, seems like he's going to be good to go. All the reports out of practice is that he is good to go. I think the Eagles are my number one team in terms of for real rankings in the playoffs right now. I don't know that they're necessarily going to win the Super Bowl. I'm certainly not going to bet on them at the odds you're getting right now, but I think the Eagles are really, really good. And my thing with them is if you go position by position, I don't know how many teams can win one, much less multiple. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks I certainly would take over Jalen Hurts, but they have the best running back, the best O-line, the best receiving room, and one of the best defenses in the entire league. So I don't know how you beat them. You can't take away the pass. Saquon will run for 200. You can't take away the run. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith will kill you over the top. I don't know how you beat the Eagles. I think the way you beat the Eagles is Nick Sirianni beats himself. And that's my only worry.
Or Jake Elliott.
Or Jake Elliott. But that's my only worry as we move through the playoffs is, does the locker room mess and Sirianni's, unwillingness to be consistent in terms of aggression come back to bite them at some point down the line? And it certainly could, but with the talent on that roster, they're as for real as it gets.
Yeah, Sirianni's the most interesting coach. Like, for one, Zach Taylor has led a team to a Super Bowl, and you guys just pile on him all the time. The Eagles fans do the same thing with Sirianni. But are you allowed to pile on a coach if they take you to 2 Super Bowls? Now, you need to win one.
He also has the best regular season winning percentage of all time, I think. Or at least of current coaches.
His fans hate him. He hates his fans. He's arguing with fans all the time. Like, there's dysfunction in that locker room, like between A.J. Brown and everyone. I just think this team's if a lesser talented team, I don't think could overcome some of the things that they faced. I think talent wins at the end of the day, and I don't think the NFC the NFC is deep, and there's a lot of very good teams. I just don't think there's not a lot of teams like the Eagles. I like the Eagles. I say they're a true contender. I think there's 2 teams in the NFC. We'll get to the other one in a moment, but yeah, I'm all in on the Eagles.
I think great teams have a lot of drama that surround them. The Patriots were not devoid of all the drama and all the noise throughout their dynasty.
The Warriors, Draymond Green fighting people.
The Browns. I mean,
yeah, the Browns. All right, final one. The Detroit Lions. They win the NFC regular season at least 15-2 this year. Best record in the NFC, first in the NFC North. I think they had very high expectations and they lived up to them, and that's with losing pretty much every defensive player they had. Yeah. I think the Lions are legitimately really, really good. I think they have a chance to win a Super Bowl this season. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see an underdog. As crazy it is, the 15-2 Lions will be the underdog forever because of how their franchise has been run. I'm happy for them. I'm going to say they're for real. I think it's going to be a Lions-Eagles NFC Championship game.
I've been back and forth on the Lions more than I've been back and forth on any team this year, and it's just because of the injuries. But they keep proving time and time again that it doesn't matter. And they fought long enough to overcome these injuries to where getting Anzalone back for Week 18 got them a win in the 1 seed. And now apparently they're going to get Montgomery back after this bye for the second round and the rest of the playoff hunt. And then we've heard Aiden Hutchinson say the whole time that he'll be back if they make it to a Super Bowl. So I think they're just going to keep getting stronger. They're absolutely for real. The only thing that worries me, Terrion Arnold was carted off the field with an ankle injury, their rookie corner, in that Week 18 game. And they're just so thin on that back end. He hasn't been great this year, but he's been pretty good. And he's started all 18 games. And if he can't go in the playoffs with the injuries they already have, I'm just worried about their back end. But he has a week off, and he has the bye, obviously, to get healthy and get ready to go. So I'm very high on the Lions. I think they've proven that these injuries don't matter as much as I kept saying they would have to at some point.
Yeah?
I love their coach. Their
Love
coach went
Dan
through a brick
Campbell.
wall. Is that real brick, by the way?
It is not.
No? Oh, interesting. Well, I'll run through that wall for him, nonetheless. All in on the look. It's Lions and Eagles. Lions and Eagles. I mean, I think that the Packers are in the mix. You mentioned the Rams a little bit ago. I think there's some teams that can flirt with some of this stuff, but I like the Lions and the Eagles to get to the NFC title game.
Everyone talks about Ben Johnson with the Lions, but in that Week 18 game, especially against the Vikings, it was Aaron Glenn who shined. Their defensive coordinator, he's getting a ton of head coaching interviews. He'll almost certainly be a head coach as well next season, so Detroit will probably need 2 different coordinators, but we've said that for, 3 years now?
Yeah.
Who knows how that's going to go, but Aaron Glenn proving yet again how great he is. I think he gets brushed under the rug a little bit, just how loud the Ben Johnson conversation is. A lot of people give him credit for the 15-2, and he obviously deserves it. He's been phenomenal, one of the most creative minds in the sport right now, but Aaron Glenn is just a phenomenal DC.
We'll fly through the AFC when we come back. More Off the Bench next.
How many minutes do we have left? That was long.
All right, we welcome you back, and we send it to Casey for an Acosta update. Casey, what do we got?
Nothing yet.
Yeah. Someday.
Yeah, we won't see Kevin Denke till 150.
Still.
Yeah,
Still, that time hasn't changed.
has not changed one bit.
But if you're listening in Dayton, and it's, let's say, at this time, it's probably about 2:40. All right, I am kind of curious. It's 2:40 p.m. in Dayton right now. Is Acosta still with FC Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is not an Acosta press conference here.
No, I don't. Yeah, Acosta's not going to be there. He's probably not going to be mentioned.
This is for Denke.
Right.
Yeah, my guy.
And I think he's going to,
We're just waiting for the announcement of Acosta leaving, though.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Have I misunderstood this entire damn thing
This
from
is
the very
new
beginning?
addition for FC Cincinnati. Has his press conference today.
Yeah, I know that. But you asked earlier if Acosta had left the team.
These are two separate.
I'm on the other one.
The press conference and Acosta leaving have nothing to do with each other.
And I'm not talking about the press conference.
You asked about the press conference.
Yeah.
No.
You said that there's an update. And
An update on Acosta.
There's no update.
There is no update.
There's no update.
Shall we continue?
Well, now we're out of damn time.
It's a touch and go.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to lump some teams in together. The Texans, the Steelers, the Broncos. You guys buying those teams?
I wonder why you lumped those three teams together.
Well, because they aren't for real.
Correct.
That's why.
Yeah, no.
I think each one of those teams are fraudulent. Casey agrees, I'm sure.
Take the Texans.
No.
It's the one of those three teams I consider winning one game.
No, I'm out.
So much money on the Chargers.
There
dude.
is a lot of money on the Chargers, but I think that's because they're the better team.
I agree.
And I don't think it's particularly
You
close.
won't like this, but I like the Broncos.
Really?
I like the Broncos.
Against
They can
who?
run the football. Bo Nix makes timely plays. That defense is elite, and they're very well coached.
I would pick the Broncos over the Steelers and no one else in the AFC playoffs.
I could
in a
see
game.
the most Josh Allen thing happening,
And he
and that's getting ousted in the
screws
first round of
that
the
game.
playoff. I could really see it.
That would make me ill.
I
That
do
would
like.
make me, the Bills need to win that game by 50.
I like Denver.
I agree.
Of all the
Okay.
frauds that you met, but
That's fair.
I see why they're in that category. But look, I've kind of learned my lesson. They were 5-3, and I said they're the biggest frauds in football, and they just kept winning. And
that
they
is
kept
true.
winning the same way, and they've looked the same the entire time. Now, I said their defense is good. I watched Joe Burrow literally throw all over it, and Josh Allen's good enough to do the same thing. So it just depends. But I like Denver's makeup. I think they're the most consistent of all the frauds that we just mentioned. They're the most consistent, and they've just kept winning their way. As long as they play their way, they're going to have a shot to beat the Bills. But I do like Denver. I'm not saying they're winning the Super Bowl, but I think they have a chance. I think that they have the defense and everything else, run the football, timely plays in the pass game, well coached. I think they check off a lot of those boxes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bills minus 8.5 is my favorite play of the first round.
I'll take the Bills as well. They have the same issue to me as the Vikings. I don't trust the quarterback. I think you're right. I think they're well coached. I think
That
they've got a
defense
solid
is
defense.
really good.
They've got
really good.
They've got a running back committee of 7, and they've got a quarterback that's not particularly good.
They also have no receivers.
They have
other than
one.
Courtland Sutton.
They have Courtland Sutton, and that's literally it. So I don't believe in them. I'll never believe in them.
Marvin Mims had 200 yards against us.
They beat one team. Is that right?
Yeah.
They beat one team this year with a winning record, I'm pretty sure. So they beat the Buccaneers early on in the season on the road.
And people forget, look, we want to poo-poo the Bengals. Oh, they're so bad. They shouldn't get into the playoffs. We just beat the Broncos second last week of the year. So
Yeah, we did.
How good are the Broncos?
All right, Chargers. Fraud or for real?
I just said I might take the Texans in this game, but that's strictly because of money
Betting.
split on how I've learned how to gamble on the NFL. And I think the Chargers are awesome. I think they're absolutely for real. I think Harbaugh has them playing great football. I believe in Herbert's ceiling as much as I believe in any quarterback's ceiling.
Yeah.
In terms of his ability to get there on any given Sunday. And if Bills Broncos goes the way I think it's going to go, I'm prepared to take the Chargers to beat the Chiefs as well. I think this Chargers team can absolutely go on a run. I'm all the way in on this Chargers team. Do you know what Quentin Johnson had in Week 18, stat-wise? Quentin Johnson, the noted bust. No one ever talks about him. He sucks so bad they have to draft another wide receiver. He had 13 catches for 190 yards in Week 18.
I had no idea about
No one's talked about it. He's been incredible this year. He's been awesome in must-win situations. 700 yards, 8 touchdowns on over 50 catches. Ladd McConkey's slid into that number 1 role, but they're getting more than we ever thought they'd get after Quentin Johnson after last season. So I think this team's peaking at the right time, and I love that defense. So I believe in Jesse Minter and Harbaugh, and I'm all in on the Chargers.
Like, this is around that time of year where, obviously you need the offense to win throughout the regular season, defense, but I think that the better defensive teams are who I'm rolling with when we get to this time of season. That's why I'm high on Denver. I think the Chargers are Denver just with a much better quarterback, but they're almost identical. Very good defenses, 2 very good head coaches, run the football, timely passer, obviously, in Bo Nix, but I think Justin Herbert's the real damn deal. I could see the Chargers go. Look, I'm having them over the Texans, and then I'm with you. When you look at the gap, the amount of time that the Chiefs are going to be off, it's not like they're a well-oiled machine to begin with this season offensively. So if there's any kind of rest offensively going up against a very good, hard-hitting defense in the Chargers, and Justin Herbert just needs to make a few big plays, I think that could be rough for the Kansas City Chiefs. But I do like the Chargers, and I like the Broncos.
The Chargers lost to the Chiefs the first time by a touchdown. They had the ball with 2 minutes left and punted it away. They lost to the Chiefs the second time by 2, and they had the ball. They kicked a field goal with 6 minutes left, and then the Chiefs got the ball back, and they never touched it again, and they lost by 2. So they've been right there in both Chiefs games. And I know that's the thing about the Chiefs this year. You can say that about literally anyone they've played because they've only won 1 game outside of 1 score. But this Chargers team, I just really, really believe in them.
The Ravens, 12-5. They win the AFC North. They've looked good. Lamar Jackson, borderline again, another MVP for him.
Has to be.
So I think the Ravens are legit. I think they're for real. The issue is, you don't see them win the playoffs, so you have those doubts. But if, again, I said it yesterday, if there's ever a year for the Ravens to win a Super Bowl, it's this season, when there are a little bit of question marks regarding the Chiefs, where there are a little bit of question marks regarding the Bills. I think the Ravens can absolutely win the Super Bowl this year. I think the talent's there. You lose Zay Flowers, which is a massive loss.
Have they said whether or not he's officially out yet?
They have not said, I don't believe yet, but as of right now, I think it
wasn't looking good.
It's Bateman as the number one.
Who's been really good in the last couple weeks.
He's been very good this year, so I think the Ravens are for real.
I think they're for real, too. That defense, remember how bad it was to start the season?
Yeah.
They have finished in the top 10. Mm-hmm. They have a top 10 rated defense in the NFL. I don't know what happened. I haven't followed to see their injury history or transactions or anything like that. I don't know what happened. I just went to go look at the defensive ranks real quick to see kind of where they were, because for the longest time I felt like they were very similar to the Bengals. Put up big numbers, can't stop anybody. I think from when they got that last Bengals win, from there on out, their defense, all of a sudden a switch was flipped. I don't know how they did it, but they climbed all the way into the top 10 defensive rank-wise, and that's where they're sitting now. So if you have a top 10 rated defense and they're playing like that with the ability to run the football with Derrick Henry, the ability to run the football with Lamar Jackson, and he's turned into an elite passing quarterback now too. Yes, the Ravens have to be I think they're the most complete team in the AFC. I think they're the most complete team. Top 10 defense, elite offense. You can talk about the Chiefs. Two-time defending Super Bowl champions, this, that, and the other. But there's some question marks there. There's still some question marks when it comes to the Chiefs offensively. I think the Ravens are the most complete team in the AFC right now.
Bills, fraud or for real. I'm going to go different route. I'm going to say they're frauds. I'm going to say the Bills are not going to win a Super Bowl this year. I think Josh Allen has been incredible. He's single-handedly carrying that team to a championship if they were to get there. The issue is I think that's the exact reason why they won't get there. Out of all the complete teams that you talk about, the Eagles, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Ravens, I think the Bills are missing the most pieces out of anything, because their offense revolves solely around their quarterback, and that's okay. I think you're able to survive that in the regular season. I think when it comes to the postseason and you need a wide receiver to make a big play, right? I don't think the Bills have that. And we'll see if Josh Allen's going to be able to prove me wrong. I think James Cook's solid. I think their defense has overperformed than whatever anybody thought this year. I just don't think they're capable of winning a Super Bowl this year.
Can the fourth team in the conference win a Super Bowl? Because I have the Bills as my number 4 if I'm ranking the teams in the AFC playoffs. So I guess I have to say they're a fraud too.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be a fraud Bills show, that kind of stinks, because I like Josh Allen. I like that team. They're fun to watch. But, yeah, I mean, when you're talking about winning a Super Bowl, I would take the Chiefs, Ravens, and even the Chargers over them.
Yeah.
I just don't think the Bills can get all the way to that mountaintop. And I think we're going to have to shift the focus, depending on how this playoffs goes, from the Lamar Jackson can't win to the Josh Allen can't win. I think at some point those uncomfortable conversations have to shift to Josh Allen as well.
Yeah, and what if Lamar doesn't win?
Right, that's what I mean. Right. I think all these guys are getting into a position now where Joe, Lamar, and Josh, are you just in an era where you're not going to win?
Yeah.
I mean, if Mahomes hoists another Lombardi trophy at the end of this year, then I think we starting to have to ask some questions about if it's ever going to happen for some of these other guys. There's only so many Super Bowls you can win in a certain era.
Yeah, I think the NFL has gotten everything they need out of the Chiefs. And what I mean by that is, I think you need another quarterback. Like, the MVPs have been going to Lamar. I think the league needs Josh Allen or Joe Burrow to win an MVP. I think the league needs another elite team, another elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl. I think you need to start building up those resumes a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like, it's becoming so Patrick Mahomes heavy that there is no Peyton Manning. There is no secondary quarterback to go up against. I'm not talking skill-wise, because Joe Burrow, yes, is that rival of Patrick Mahomes. But Peyton Manning had that resume too. He had the skill set and the resume to kind of keep building that feud. I think right now the league needs that secondary team to be that feud for the for the Chiefs. That have the hardware to kind of back it up. They need the Ravens to win this Super Bowl. They need the Bengals to get back together to win that Super Bowl. They need the Joe Burrow, the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. They need one of those 4 quarterbacks to win MVPs and to win a Super Bowl, I think, to keep this league a little fresh. Because winning a 3rd Super Bowl for the Chiefs, I don't know what that does for the NFL. It just continues to keep everyone else around them down. That's not the Chiefs' responsibility by any means. But I think the league will be healthier if a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert or those level of quarterbacks win a Super Bowl. C.J. Stroud, a year ago, I was ready to put him in that category. I'm not anymore. Yeah. But I thought he was trending in that direction too. So, and Shedeur Sanders, when he does it with Cleveland next year, I think it's going to be huge, for the entire league, Not even a smile.
Well,
Not even a laugh?
I
Not
can't
even-
laugh because it's going to make me cough and sick.
It's not even funny.
No, I'm moving on from the Browns. It comes down to the final one. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. I think out of all the teams this year, there's been more fraudulent claims on them than anybody in the postseason. They're 15-2. They win the AFC West yet again. I don't know how many straight AFC West titles that is. 8? Is it 10? It might be 10. I don't know how many it is. Either way, do you think that you can associate the word fraudulent with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid? Because I don't. I don't think you're allowed to say it. I think you can have doubts based on what's happened with Patrick this year. First time he's not a Pro Bowler. Saying that, I don't think there's a world where the Chiefs lose a game early. They will win 2 playoff games.
Yeah, the Chiefs they're at least a lock to get to the AFC title game, right? But then again, I say that I really like the Chargers.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert. I don't know. It's not an easy task by any means, but
You know what? I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. The Chiefs are frauds. They've been frauds all year. They've won one game that's not a one-score game. They're going to have to play playoff teams for the rest of the season. They're going to lose. They're going to lose. Maybe they don't even win a game. They'll lose their first one. They lose in Burrowhead. Let's stamp that.
clip it. I like it. I like it. Clip it. I like it. The Chiefs are frauds.
Chiefs are frauds.
Bums.
First ever 15-1, decade-long repeat division champ, back-to-back Super Bowl frauds. Do you realize what
Patrick
crazy this is?
Mahomes,
They've won the
am I
AFC West
right?
for a decade straight. They've won
Is it 10
back-to-back
straight?
Super Bowls. I think it's more. They've won back-to-back Super Bowls. And everyone's just kind of, yeah, they're frauds.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
They are, though. That's what people don't want you to believe. They are frauds.
Let me
They
see.
get in your head.
I'm looking up how many straight. 9. They've won 9
They won
straight
9 in a row.
AFC
one off.
West. And I think a lot of them aren't close.
Correct.
I think a lot of them aren't remotely competitive.
Correct. This division just got competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chargers, pre-Herbert, Rivers was obviously good, but that was pre-Mahomes. We know how bad the Raiders have been. We know how bad the Broncos have been. This is the first time they've made the playoffs in almost a decade. And, yeah, they've been able to just kind of coast in the AFC West, and that's certainly helped them come to the playoffs. Hopefully in the future that division gets a little harder.
2 years ago, we thought that division was loaded, too, when you had Justin Herbert, obviously with the Chargers still there. But you also had Russell Wilson going to Denver. At the time, that was a big deal. At the time, we thought that was going to be a legit game changer. So you had Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. Then you had Carr with the Raiders, who was putting up very good numbers. We thought that division was going to be very competitive top to bottom. Not so much. Not even a little. So there you go. We're done on radio. That wraps it up for us. This has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, and we are back, and we officially have 15 minutes remaining. What we got?
I'm not going to call. I am
You don't
dying.
get all choked up, The show's almost done. You don't need to cry.
I am dying.
Don't die.
Reed's getting on me because last year I did make the mistake that I think I said the Browns might win 2 playoff games or 3 playoff games or something like that. I said the Chiefs were for real, and I said they'd win 2 playoff games, which means they're going to the Super Bowl. So I stand by that, right?
Yeah.
I stand by that.
Yeah, I understand what you were saying.
I think that works.
You were saying the first time they could lose is one of the NFC juggernauts.
Correct.
Lions or Eagles or I guess just those two probably.
Just those 2.
Yeah. No, I got what you're saying.
I don't think there's a chance a wild card team wins it this year, right?
I've bet on
you
2.
say the
I've bet on
Chargers.
2 so far.
You say the Chargers.
I bet on the Chargers and the Packers.
There's a world I could see maybe the Packers doing it just because of Lambeau Field and they always go on these runs in the postseason, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be one of the top dogs this year, as it usually is, winning the championship. But I think it's going to be one of the 1 seeds. I really do. I think it's going to be the Chiefs Lions in the Super Bowl, which would be very fun. I think the Lions having a chance to dethrone Patrick Mahomes would be very, very cool. I would be a big Lions fan. That's for sure.
Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I know someone had mentioned earlier, too, when the headlines, you brought up the Cavs, because I just had someone send in something regarding that, too. Like, why does that not feel like a big deal, even though it is? Why does the Cavs dominating start right now not feel like as big a deal as what it is?
Tis the NBA.
I told Casey, and Mousecap doesn't like when we talk NBA on the show, and that's probably fair if you're an NBA fan.
That is true.
You certainly don't want to listen to us talk about it. They're 32-4.
That's crazy.
Like, that should be
I
a
had no
bigger
idea.
deal.
32-4.
That should be a huge deal.
Yeah, NBA season started, a week ago? When the new year turns is usually when a lot of people start tuning into the NBA. So I think it's going to take a while for people to really start turning it on. If they do, we've talked about the ratings a lot this year. The NBA just doesn't have the draw it used to have. We were all talking about it before the show today. This is distantly the least any of us have cared about the NBA in a while now. I mean, I watch games if LeBron's on, but other than that, I'm not turning on the TV to watch a game. And we talked about yesterday all the stats that made that game one of the best regular season games of all time. Never in my mind had an inkling to turn that on.
Nope.
And watch Cavs play the Thunder last night. And it's the best game you could possibly get. So I don't know what it would take for NBA to bounce back, for me to care about the intricacies of the regular season, but I just don't care.
Realistically, how many more wins would it take for the Cavs to clinch a playoff spot? They're at 32 right now. The 10th ranked team in the Eastern Conference, the Bulls, have 17 wins. I think 42 would clinch you. 10 more wins, and the next 40 would clinch your playoff spot.
The problem, though, there's like a trickle-down effect to the players telling you the regular season doesn't matter.
Yeah, it sucks.
Because because we're like, well, for all the people who get mad about the players not playing, you can still talk about the positives. And by the way, I'm on board of saying, yes, it's a huge deal what the Cavs are doing, like, no doubt. And I think it's badass what they're doing. For one, it's Cleveland and it's the Cavs, and they don't have LeBron, and they're finding ways to win without him. I think that's cool. The problem is, the athletes have told you, the players have told you the regular season doesn't matter. So that means no matter what happens in the regular season, it doesn't matter. Good and bad. We act like just the bad doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, are the Cavs, are they a beneficiary of a bunch of teams not trying? Or are they this legit dominant team that the Warriors were back in 16 or 15 whenever they went on their run? Like, that's the question. I think that's what happens with all of this. People talk about, man, we're the 1 seed. The Thunder were the 1 seed or whatever last year. Seeding doesn't matter in the playoffs because I don't think it's a true representation of the quality of the teams, because I don't think all the teams are giving the same effort throughout the year. Back then, it was like, we got to compete to finish with the highest seed possible. You have the Lakers who are like, just get to the playoffs. Just get LeBron to the playoffs and just get him on that stage. That's all that matters. These teams aren't competing for seeding in the playoffs. They don't care. It's not, so when you have a top seed, the last year Boston was the 1 seed and they won the NBA title. I get that. But that hasn't been a common trend. Seeding doesn't matter in the playoffs because it's not a true reflection of the quality of the teams that are in there, because no one's giving a rip or an effort for an entire regular season span. So then when the Cavs accomplish something like this in the regular season, it's watered down because, well, they're trying, but is the competition that they're going up against trying? It's not fair, but I do think that plays a role in it.
I don't know. I do think that they try. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that NBA players don't try. There is an issue.
You watch the NBA?
I'm just saying, like, I mean, there is the issue with the load management stuff. But I think everybody that's out there is trying to win. So I'm not going to take that away from the Cavs going 30-4 against, or 32-4 against teams that aren't trying is a hell of a feat, let alone teams that are. So I just think the NBA is something that I've never been a big fan of. By the way, this is something interesting. The teams 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the Eastern Conference all are on winning streaks right now. How about that? Top 9 seeds.
All trying to win?
All on winning streaks.
Or they're all playing teams that aren't trying. Have you ever thought about that?
Or that.
It's all about perspective.
I think there is a lack of. I mean, I don't know how you fix it. Really, we'll see.
It's the league's fault. I don't feel bad for them. It's the players' fault. I blame them 100%. Like they thought they could just roll the ball out there and everyone's just going to tune in, and that's not the case. I don't think that's the case at all, and it's backfired on them big time. Like, I actually enjoy watching the demise of the NBA to a certain extent because they thought they were bulletproof. I hate when athletes think that they could do whatever they want and that the fans are just going to take it, and the NBA fans are saying we're not just going to take it. If you don't care about the regular season, we don't care about the regular season. You don't care about the fans, we don't care about your sport, and we're seeing that rapid decline in the popularity of the NBA, which stinks because I like the NBA. It may not sound like it, but I do. But I'm one of those pissed off fans that feels disrespected by the effort and just the attitude of the players over the years.
Do you think that when JJ Redick was coming after inside the NBA, saying that that's the reason why the sport is suffering, do you think that's fair or not fair?
So I've also there's actually some truth to that too. I don't think any sport out there, the sport tears itself down more than any other sport. When a player accomplishes something in baseball, like Shohei Ohtani, no one's coming out and saying, well, that's fine, but he's no Babe Ruth. Like, that's what happens in the NBA. Anytime a player does something good, it's, well, that's great, but he's no Nate Robinson. Am I right? He's no Michael Jordan. Like, no matter what LeBron does, we just crap on it because he's not MJ. It just, like, no matter what a player does in today's NBA, we bury it because it's not the old school NBA way. The old NBA players, legends, they dunk on the current sport more than any other legends of any other sport. Tom Brady, although he was critical of today's NFL, I'd find that completely different than the constant noise you hear out of former NBA legends just crapping all over the sport. I think the NBA is its own worst enemy. The former players crap on today's athletes. Today's athletes disrespect the former athletes. Fans are constantly at one another. I think it's the most unhealthy sport out there.
You don't see it in any other
You
sport.
don't. Football, nothing.
LeBron does that sick windmill reverse dunk, whatever, 2 nights ago, and the first thing they do, cut to the Inside NBA TNT show, and Charles Barkley is just like, well, Jordan would have done it 10 times better. 1998, he did it. He switched hands in a layup and did it 10 times better. It's like, why don't we just recognize greatness in the sport and prop up the players and, pace of play and stuff changes. Let's talk about how great the game is today instead of trying to tear it down every chance you get. I think that's killing the NBA, and we're seeing it, year after year with less and less people caring about the sport. And I think if you're a fan of a team, you care about the regular season, and if you're not a fan of a team, you wait till the playoffs and you maybe tune in around 2.
I forgot the co-host of Colin Cowherd, or the producer for I can't remember his name.
Joy Taylor?
No. Always with Joy Taylor with you. No, I forgot, but he brought up, he got buried a couple weeks ago because he put out a point that he said the worst thing to happen to the NBA is actually the best thing about the NBA, which is the inside the NBA with Shaq and Ernie and Charles and them, because those are the most popular figureheads with the sport, and all they do is bury today's talent. And so if that's what the majority, if not all NBA fans are tuning into, all they're being told over and over is how bad the product is today. And I think that I got Drew something McIntyre's his name. But the bottom line is I agreed with him. I actually thought he was right. Everyone said it was the dumbest take ever. How horrible to say that the most popular show that's saving the NBA is the problem. I'm like, no, watch that show. I love it, by the way. I'm not going to not tune in. But it's true. You're right. LeBron had that dunk the other day, and it turned into an MJ debate. The NBA playoffs, everything going on right now, turned into First Take the other day. Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. are screaming at one another about LeBron versus MJ. I'm like, what the hell is happening? Why is LeBron versus MJ carrying all these conversations when you have college football playoffs, NFL playoffs, everything happening right now, and we're talking MJ LeBron as if it's July, the week of the All-Star game in Major League Baseball? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I will say this, too. The hosts on the ESPN talk stuff, they've been no disrespect to the good ones, but there are a lot of bad ones out there. That are kind of doing it for. I mean, there are, like you say, no one's doing it in other sports. That's true. They are doing it in a way for the Shannon Sharp stuff on Joe Burrow doesn't make a sense. Like he's making it a bit to go on.
He looks silly.
Nationally televised shows and saying. And he celebrated a Joe Burrow interception, whatever that was, on Sunday night against the Steelers. It's a strange bit to have given the circumstance. I think we in this little realm, being the Cincinnati little talk show here, I think it's a little bit different. Obviously, if we're talking about it than the national media, that come on every day and spew whatever they got. I think that goes around, sport-wide. Every single sport has some sort of Shannon Sharp attached to it. That's just there not to give any sort of real information or real take. It's just to get clicks. And that's unfortunately the business of sports right now.
Yeah, but I don't think and you won't like this, but Shannon Sharp backs it up with his takes, and he uses exact moments of games that Joe Burrow turns the ball over to back his take. It's not like he's just throwing it out there.
But he cheers for it.
I think he cheers to say, see, Dan Orlovsky, told you. Like, I think we do that. That's how you do it. How is that any different?
That is, but I'm not on ESPN.
You're on 1410 ESPN Radio, dude. That's
almost.
It's almost the same thing.
I am not. Okay, you're right. But we made a very clear disclaimer at the beginning of every single show that this is not a very serious sports talk show. So I give out funny takes. That's what I do. When you're like when you're representative of a sport or the league or a network, it's a little bit different, I'd say. So I do think the Shannon Sharp stuff is a little bit nonsensical.
Yeah. I certainly agree. We had the same conversation with Chris Canty at the beginning of the season, and I think
he was the bad one. He wouldn't back up anything.
Yeah,
he's the one that, even for me, because Shannon Sharp, if you actually listen to his takes on it, he's not. I'm not saying he's not wrong. I
He has
understand where he's coming
rationale.
from. Yes. Canty was just, I hate the Bengals, I hate Joe Burrow. Like, that's Chris. I would agree with you on that one because Canty would never provide any
Canty's
substance.
the worst.
He would just say, no, Joe Burrow's not as good as everyone says, and that's all he would do. But that one I agree with. I don't want to change the subject, but this just came across a little bit ago that the Falcons general manager Terry, I don't even know.
Fontenot?
Yeah, there we go, Fontenot.
I got
He said that they are very comfortable moving forward with Kirk Cousins as a backup. That they are not looking to move on from Kirk Cousins. That's
an expensive backup.
$40 million backup, dude.
What else is he going to say?
I don't know.
If he says we're going to cut Kirk Cousins, then no team picks up the phone to trade for Kirk Cousins.
He's going to reevaluate us.
If they're comfortable with Kirk Cousins as their backup going into next season, someone's got to give him a pick instead of just signing him for $1.5 million.
But this organization also, although you like the Kirk Cousins and drafting picks.
I did.
Okay. But there's some that believe that they are making weird decisions and that it wouldn't be the most un-Falcons thing ever to still move forward with him as a backup $40 million quarterback because maybe they're not sold on Michael Penix when it's all said and done. And maybe it is a result of him coming off of an injury last year, talking about, of course, Kirk Cousins. So who knows? This offseason is going to be very weird. The draft, when you have a draft without good quarterbacks, it makes everyone on edge.
It's weird.
And it forces teams to either make bad decisions and a lot of trades around the draft. And we know the Bengals won't trade up for anything, right? There's no way in hell.
Come on.
Can we just eliminate that as a talking point?
No.
It's January 9th, right? Yeah, 9th. There's no chance that from now until the draft that we will ever talk about the Bengals moving up in the draft for anything.
There's only one quarterback in the consensus top 40 for the prospect rankings. That's insane.
Who is it?
It's Cam Ward. Shadur's not a consensus top 40. I think he's right about 41, 42. But it's insane how bad this quarterback class is. Everyone keeps saying it's Kenny Pickett again. There's not going to be a quarterback taken until the 20s. It's Kenny Pickett's class again in terms of talent. But these guys are going to go 1 and 2, which is going to be terrible for these two
You know the timeline
teams.
that's about to unfold, right? The Browns will take Shador at 2. This season will be horrible. Stefanski will be fired. Primetime will be leading Cleveland in a year.
That'd be fun.
It'd be fun. It'd be Cleveland. It won't be good.
No, it won't be good. It'd be
won't
fun for us. It'd be fun for the three of us. Dion and Shador.
A lot of rational takes. A lot of rational takes will be had at my team's expense, I'm sure.
That's right.
I'm sure. Nonetheless. But, hey, look at that. 11:59. We ending a minute early. Anything to close out?
I was trying to think of something to close it out. I think the only way to end it is with another Acosta update.
I think that's probably right, yeah.
The press conference.
There's no update.
Oh, that's a shame.
But there might be. We're just hours
Just at
behind.
some point.
Yeah, just at some point.
No, at some point there'll be an update. Lou Anarumo did get his first interview today.
I saw that.
Put it in the chat, but he's going to be interviewed for the Colts defensive coordinator opening later today or tomorrow. So he's already getting his name back out there in some circles, and we'll see what happens. I would expect him to get a job very, very quickly.
Colts, that organization kind of stinky too.
Maybe we do this another day. Obviously, we're out of time today, but power ranking worst ran organizations, off-season topic for sure. But I think the Colts are very high up there with keeping Ballard around after what he's done since he took over as the GM. Every team in that division's won the division except for the Colts since they hired Chris Ballard.
It's pretty bad.
That's a flip-a-coin division.
He got Andrew Luck for a year, right?
I believe.
Or did he have the injured Andrew Luck?
I think he had the Andrew Luck, injury to Andrew Luck, retired Andrew Luck.
Okay.
I believe.
All right. That wraps it up for us. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.